Wuornos is often referred to as the first female serial killer.
This woman had become a cold-blooded killer.
She killed as cold as ice.
She's got death row wrote all over her eyes.
I believe she's here. She's just really strong.
Is she angry?
Right now she is.
What was that?
There's definitely entities here.
I just feel like I've got a sun lamp on my face.
They're just saying, die, bitch. I know she's here. This scares the hell out of me. She's here. She just called you a bitch.
I'm in good company then.
Going to kill you. I think it's going to be a sleepless night.
Aileen Wuornos was executed in 2002 for the murder of 7 men. A down-on-her-luck lesbian prostitute, she lured her clients to remote wooded areas and, more often than not, shot them at point-blank range.
Wuornos' story was made famous by Charlize Theron's portrayal of her in the movie Monster. Her character was complex, her story compelling, both vicious and pathetic. Wuornos earned herself the title of America's first female serial killer.
Our search for her ghost will take us from her birthplace in Midwest America down to the swamplands of Central Florida. But which Aileen Wuornos will we find? The unstable product of an abusive childhood, or a vicious murderer who liked to kill for fun?
This is the story of the serial killer who the media branded the damsel of death. Our journey was to take us through her life in the hope of contacting this serial killer after death. But does the ghost of Aileen Wuornos want to be found? Our investigation will take us from the snowdrifts of Michigan to the heat haze of the Sunshine State and the city of Daytona. We will investigate the motel where she spent her final weeks, the deserted restaurant where she stayed in the midst of her murder spree, and finally to the world-famous last resort, the bar where she was eventually caught. Abused or abuser, what drove this woman to kill and kill again? We wanted to uncover these answers and more as our paranormal journey aims to uncover new evidence from beyond the grave. Her last words stated that she'd be back, so now was the time to prove it. Volusia County, 1989, and the partly decomposed body of shop owner Richard Mallory is found in undergrowth. The murder baffles the local sheriff's department, but as they begin to search for Mallory's killer, another middle-aged white male is murdered in the same way.
Piece of shit!
And another and another. Someone was systematically picking off these men along the highways of Central Florida. A year later, and at least 7 men were dead. The police were closing in on their suspect, and their suspect was a disheveled, down-on-her-luck prostitute called Aileen Wuornos.
The motivation for Aileen Wuornos' killings was anger, hatred, and hostility towards men that have abused her repetitively.
This monster's life had begun inauspiciously. Aileen Wuornos was born Eileen Pittman here in Rochester, Michigan on February the 29th, 1956. I wanted to begin our investigation by talking to someone who had known Aileen Wuornos from the very beginning. Would the information they gave us lead us closer to her spirit? Dawn Bodkins and Aileen Wuornos were friends from childhood. As teenagers, they hung out together in shopping malls and in the woods. Aileen called Dawn the most beloved childhood friend she had ever had, and it was a relationship that would last a lifetime. Today, Dawn still lives in Michigan, and it is here at her home that Eileen's ashes are spread.
Can you tell us about when you first met Aileen and how your friendship developed?
Oh, geez, what was it? I actually was through her brother and her sister. Laurie was the sweet one everybody liked. Aileen was the quiet one. Everybody was nervous around. She really was, she had no place to go, so she was just always around the pits.
And describe to us a little bit about what Aileen was like as a person, as a friend, when you knew her, when you guys were hanging out as teenagers.
She was quiet. We would just go to the mall, go out to eat and stuff like that, and buy clothes, things like that, and just party in the evenings. Then she'd go off on her little way and come back in a few days. She was quiet, except for when she got drunk.
When did she start to do the prostitution, and when did she start
Very
leading
young.
that life?
But when she was 15 and 16, she had nowhere to go. She had to go find somewhere to sleep in a car for the night and wait till she gets picked up the next day, or somebody's going to be nice to her, one of the kids hang out with her that's not going to beat her up or something. So that's how it started. It wasn't really, I think I'll be a prostitute today and go pick up a man and make some money. And it just seemed to be that that's the way it was going to be with her. You know?
And when people use that as maybe a reason, trying to explain to themselves why Aileen became the killer that she did, do you think her upbringing, the fact that, as you say, she was always having to survive, I guess, had something to do with it?
No. It doesn't matter why or how she murdered them. The fact is she murdered them. So I don't want to have to sit here and say, well, she had a reason for killing each one. You know, I don't want to have to explain that to you. The fact is she murdered all 7 men and she paid her price for it. Figured one day she would be the one killed, actually, not her be doing the killing.
We had started our search for the ghost of Aileen Wuornos at the place where she began her life. People still cared about her here, but would this be enough to encourage her to talk from beyond the grave? Dawn Botkins was Aileen's best friend. The killer's ashes are spread under a tree in Dawn's garden. She also has a vast collection of Wuornos' personal belongings, including the trainers that she was wearing at the time of her execution. I wanted to see if Bobby could pick up any resonance of Aileen from them using psychometry. Psychometry is a form of extrasensory perception. Information is said to be obtained through the means of physical contact with an object that belonged to the deceased. You couldn't get much closer to Aileen than this, but would it be enough for Bobby to make contact?
I just, I grimace just because of the emotion. I can just see her laid out, a jolt of adrenaline hitting in the pit of her stomach, starting to breathe a little harder and heavy. And it feels like the people who are witnessing the execution is off here to my left-hand side. Man, I can feel a couple of people who what I assume is the family of the men murdered. They're just like saying, "Die, bitch." And they're just so angry. It's like I don't want to look and face them. But there's a couple people there that I want to see. And I can feel the needles. It almost feels like 2 arms. I'm starting to get sensations now. And I'm starting to get a little warm. And then things are starting to get like blurry. I'm almost there. I'm almost afraid to close my eyes, and then I just find them closed. But I'm still alive. And she's gone. It wasn't as dramatic as I thought it might be. She certainly wasn't kicking or protesting. She was very focused.
Bobby, if these shoes could talk, what do you think they would tell us about Aileen's final moments?
It almost seems like she says she's sorry just before she goes, but to herself. Doesn't seem like she really said anything to anybody. She just kind of said, "I'm sorry."
Was Bobby's insight paranormal, or was it psychosomatic? It was hard not to feel moved by the history of these boots. The usual procedure for lethal injection is to use 1 syringe with a concoction of 3 different chemicals, but Aileen was different and had been pronounced dead following the injection of 2 syringes of potassium chloride into her bloodstream at the Florida State Prison. Bobby had correctly picked this up, and I don't believe he could have known this fact before. The following morning, there was a deathly chill in the Michigan air. Bobby and I met up to continue our journey.
We found out a lot about Aileen's childhood and her teenage years. And then, of course, you held the boots, which marked the end of her life. So I think the next part in our journey is to find out how Aileen, the teenager, became Aileen, the killer.
And where do we go for that?
Florida.
The young Wuornos had struggled to survive the unforgiving Michigan winters and headed south to Florida to ply her trade as a prostitute.
If you are a prostitute, you can probably find a place to ply your trade almost anywhere, no matter where you go.
The 20-year-old Wuornos landed up in the seaside resort of Daytona. She had left Michigan with an escalating rap sheet, and the citations followed her to Florida. For years, Wuornos' life lurched from one petty crime to the next. All of the time she worked as an interstate hooker, picking up her customers from the curbsides and slip roads of Florida's freeways.
She could stand out on the highway in a bikini and hitchhike and know that some man is going to pick her up. She had no doubt about that, and she knew what she could do once she's picked up.
But her life was spiraling downwards in a blur of beer and dope. For a woman who made her living making men feel a bit less lonely, emotionally she was alone and looking for something and someone new.
She wanted to be the center of attention, the boss or the dominant one. And her little girlfriend liked to play, we have these claw machines that pick up stuffed animals and drop them in a hole. She liked to play that all the time.
Aileen and Tyria lived an itinerant lifestyle, moving from motel to motel, from claustrophobic apartment to cramped trailer. In January 1989, the two of them landed in Homosassa Springs on the west coast of Florida, living in a trailer park managed by Billy Copeland. Aileen and Ty lived with the Copelands for 3 months. Later that year, Wuornos killed for the first time. No one knew Wuornos better than Billy and his wife Cindy. Would uncovering her state of mind in the months leading up to her first murder lead us closer to communicating with her now?
What was their behavior like when they were
together
living in the park?
She was kind of quiet and all at first. She, they weren't too rowdy or anything. But then they got more and more like aggressive or whatever.
Did you ever see Aileen with a weapon?
Yeah, I'm the one that told my wife. I called it a whore purse. She had a little purse, and I come in one day and she was out there practicing in a tree with a pellet gun. And then she started using that .22 pistol in that tree, and that's when I got mad.
One time I took her to the end of the road. We got to talking about, hitchhiking, and I said something about, well, nowadays there's all kinds of crazy people out there. I'd be kind of scared, And she opened her purse and she said, I'm not scared. And there was a gun in her purse.
When did you guys first start to suspect that the two women might have been involved in these murders?
When the artist's sketch came out of the two of them, I was reading the paper that morning and I said, oh my God, and Billy said, what's wrong? And I turned the paper around, and when I turned it around, he knew exactly who I was thinking of.
Actually, I'd never been really scared of her until I got that newspaper and stuck it on my jacket and went to the police station.
Was she a cold-blooded killer, do you think?
She's got death row wrote all over her eyes. To me, it was cold.
It was like there was nothing there.
As 1989 wore on, Aileen became increasingly belligerent and angry.
She had lost her looks. She wasn't able to earn as much as she was when she was younger and more attractive. And she had the pressure from Tyra Moore to make more money.
On December the 1st, 1989, the frustration exploded into life.
It was her recollection that Mallory had picked her up and that they had agreed to party. According to Lee, he began to be very rough with her and at some point put a collar around her neck and affixed it to the steering column. And she snapped. That, in my opinion, is what started her down that road.
Mallory's car was found abandoned here on John Anderson Drive. His decomposed corpse was found 2 weeks later in woods northwest of Daytona Beach. He'd been shot 3 times with a .22 pistol. The murder of Richard Mallory was only the beginning. Over the next 10 months, bodies turned up all across Central Florida. Whilst Wuornos was killing, the two women continued their transient lifestyle. The majority of their time was spent in the Daytona area, primarily in Port Orange. It was here at the bridge over Rose Bay that Wuornos disposed of her murder weapon, a .22 caliber 9-shot convertible revolver. On September the 29th, Aileen checked into the Fairview Motel under the name Cammy Marsh Green.
So Bobby, this is the Fairview Motel. We've just pulled up specifically in front of room 8, which is really important because this is the room where Tyria and Aileen spent most of their time. It's also quite a dark location because we know when Tyria left Aileen, she came back to live at the motel here, but she couldn't go into room 8 because it held so many memories for her.
Right.
So Bobby, this is it, the notorious Fairview room 8. Do you want to have a minute just to take things in?
I can see her combing her hair in front of the mirror there. She's getting ready to go out. She brushes it quite fast. It seems like she snaps her hair off. She used to sit right here. Is that counting money again? Yeah. She was always concerned about still saving up for, you know, the bus ticket or some way out. Or
do you get the feeling that that was a genuine goal, so that they were going through this journey with purpose, or that they were just drifting?
She wasn't doing what she was doing for this end goal, but that's what their goal was. It's very high emotion. It was a very emotional time for them both. A lot of fights, you know, especially on Eileen's part. If I'm tuning into Eileen's energy, I see her getting mad. We'll just go then, and then she goes out here and slams the door.
It seemed that Bobby was beginning to tune into a more aggressive side of Wuornos. Now I had left him alone for the night in room 8. Would Bobby come any closer to a conversation with a serial killer? The energy surrounding this motel is dark, with a grisly history. A few weeks prior to our visit, 2 murderers had hidden out there, wanted for the decapitation of a New York woman. Bobby could be in spiritual and physical danger here.
This is my room. Or shall I say Eileen's room. The only thing I've really noticed, it's been pretty quiet. Muffled voices. I've gotta assume that's next door. The only thing that makes me leery about them is that they're continuous. There hasn't been a pause in them. But cold. It's just been getting cold. Now I've taken temperature readings of the place. 72. The thing is when I first got here, it was in the mid 80s, 85. It's dropped, what, a good 14, 15 degrees since for 15 minutes. So Aileen, I'm calling you out and try to bring you through. I will only accept the spirit of Aileen Wuornos. I get these little flashes. That's a peripheral vision of my eyes, and I just saw one over there on the wall through the mirror. It's not a reflection because there's no car reflections coming in from that. It's one of the first things I made sure of. Just a little pinpoint of the light, which is generally an orb, it's generally down. Spirits, entities. Why don't you give me a sign to let me know that you're even here and listening to me? There's just a flash. And even when I do this, it scares the hell out of me. Somebody's here. Got that pressure in my hair again, that changing pressure in my hair. cold. Won't go away. My skin is delicate to the touch. In other words, I touch it and I get tingles all over my whole body. I don't know if we've captured any orbs behind me or not. I haven't seen any.
As Bobby turns his head, a large spherical object floats over his left shoulder. Could this ball of light be an orb, allegedly a manifestation of the spirit of Aileen Wuornos?
Tell you what, it's going to be a sleepless night.
Was Aileen Wuornos getting closer? More importantly, did she want to talk to us? Our paranormal investigation into the life and death of Aileen Wuornos had brought us to America's Sunshine State, Florida. In 1990, Aileen Wuornos went on a murderous rampage that left 7 men dead. Whilst working as an interstate prostitute, Wuornos turned roads like the I-95 into highways to hell. The hitchhiking hooker picked up her victims from the roadside. She lured her prey to lonely and deserted wooded areas. Then she pulled a .22 caliber revolver from her handbag and shot them dead. Wuornos stole anything of value, which she would later trade under one of her aliases in the pawn shops of Daytona Beach. Aileen and her lesbian lover, Tyria Moore, spent their last months together in and out of room 8 at the Fairview Motel. When they could no longer afford the motel's $125 a week rent, they took their hard luck story to the Belgrade, a small Yugoslavian restaurant next door. The owner rented the women a tiny room in the back of the establishment for $50 a week. The Belgrade has changed hands since Wuornos lived here. In 2001, it became the Happening Bar and Grill, but today it stands derelict. But is it as deserted as it looks? Could it be captive to a hostile spirit? Certainly its current owner believes the place is rife with paranormal activity, but is any of it Aileen?
So this is it, room number 2. Wow, God, it's pretty decayed, isn't it?
Yeah, there's just a lot of energy right over here, especially. And this is Aileen. It's coming up around us right now. I believe she's here. It's just really strong. This was the end of their relationship in this room. Totally feeling Aileen huge back here.
Is she angry?
Right now she is.
So when we come back, do you expect to feel Aileen in this room?
I already am. So yeah, there's no doubt that she'll come through tonight. She's already here.
As the safety of the evening light drained from the Floridian sky, we prepared to investigate the restaurant. Could its infamous lodger still be lurking in the shadows? We were about to find out.
So what do you want to do first?
I just want to walk around and start tuning in and start sensing some of the things I was sensing earlier. I mean, definitely felt the presence of Aileen. What I felt back there was the beginnings of an explosion.
So you want to start off in here, Bobby?
I do, yeah. I mean, she's definitely frequented. Here's a torch for you.
Thank you.
In fact, I think she sat right here.
She might have wanted to sit near the door because at this point, she's killed several men.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's what I'm saying. She's keeping her back to everything and she wants a vantage point. She wants to be able to look out. So, ooh, this is good back here.
So, I mean, this is...
Okay, hang on just a second. Hello? Hello? It's really strong back here. It's back here. Hello? Who's here? Hello?
I get the feeling, Bobby, we're kind of...
Hang on, sweetie, I'm sorry. Hang on. Is somebody here? Is that up front? Did you hear that? Like a door shutting?
I have to say I didn't.
If there's somebody in here, can you help us out by making a noise?
What was that?
I'm getting that anxious feeling. You know how you get in the pit of your stomach?
Why do you think you're getting that feeling?
The energy's just stirring up. I think I barely heard something over here. I feel them right here.
I do feel genuinely creeped out here in a way that I haven't in other places.
There's definitely entities here. I can hear Aileen laughing. Do you hear that?
It's like a
It's like beeping or whistling or something.
Can you keep doing that?
Can you hear the pressure change? I mean, can you feel that? That's them moving around. That's them. Definitely got a presence here.
You getting anything on the temperature gauge?
70 degrees, and then it jumps up to 75.
I'm pretty warm. Right on my left cheek.
96 degrees, 97 degrees.
So what's happening? I'm a...
Energy.
Okay.
That's a spirit. Right there on your forehead is 86. Right down here at your cheek is 96. 98, 99.
I just feel like I've got a sun lamp on my face.
100. And yet when we come just to the side over here, it goes all the way down to 73.
I'm
Still at
absolutely boiling.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we saying then? That this spirit energy is around me?
It's the energy impressing itself on you.
Would you mind if we went out and we got some fresh air and
We
just
could do
give
that.
me
That's gonna
a
help.
minute?
Right.
That feels a little bit more normal now. Just felt like a really, really intense heat, like the equivalent of sitting under a sun lamp all over my face, but particularly around here. It's quite freaked me out, actually. I really didn't enjoy that.
As we moved away from the energy in the main bar, I was nervous about what I would experience in the room where she lived.
Okay, so this is her room.
Okay, let's take a look. This is
where
number
she
2.
Stayed at. I know she's here.
Why is she still here?
This is where she's trying to make restitution again. She's trying to, I don't know if it's like relive those emotions again or feel them again. She has to deal with them. She never dealt with them. She's kind of laughing. She had this really big smile. And she's really smiling. Now she's crying. Did you hear that?
Sounded almost kind of like the door shutting. She hasn't left, has she?
No. That was really loud.
It couldn't just be maybe an animal in the roof space, something like that.
I mean, yes. Aileen, if this is you around here, will you just give us a sign? Do you hear that again? Right up there.
Yeah.
Is there an apartment above us?
No. But those were definite knocks. They definitely
couldn't-
came from the roof space, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Despite all the other noise.
She used to daydream in this room, from what I'm picking up psychically. She used to daydream. I just had an image of her laying across on this bed with her arms behind her head.
What surprises me about that is that, you know, a person who's killing people has time to daydream. There has to be an evil, a darkness somewhere in a person to be able to do that and then just simply walk away.
Did you hear that right there?
Yeah, I did.
Right there. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
So then we talk about Aileen, then she does that. She's here. And she knows she f***ed up. Hang on a second. Apparently I got that wrong, because now I'm seeing her go, no, 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 no. She's just going off. Wasn't f***ing right. She had these tirades, didn't she? You tell those motherfuckers, and so I'm f***ing going to kill you. Well, you're picking up a f***ing whore. He was trying to f*** me up the ass. Aileen, calm down. Aileen, are you still there, sweetie?
Do we have to call her sweetie? I'm a bit uncomfortable with that.
Well, then you don't and I will.
What is it that she wants us to know?
She killed more than 7. I think she killed up to maybe 11 people.
What is giving you that impression?
She is, or I'm picking up on that.
Bobby came up with lots of really interesting things. Could you get those from watching the film Monster or from doing some research on the internet? Probably you could. And I certainly felt that in that place we got a very factual sense of what it would have been like for them to live there, particularly at the time that she was killing these men.
Piece of shit!
At the end of the bar, we were standing discussing something to do with Aileen Wuornos, and I started to feel really hot. Almost felt like it was on fire. Could it be that I was sort of so immersed in the story and from everything that Bobby was saying about this energy being close to me and around me that I almost imagined it? Maybe.
Towards the end of 1990, the police were closing in on their killer. Time was running out for Aileen.
I think that they suspected that it was a woman or women killing men, and they came to that conclusion because of the placement of the car seat in relation to the accelerator.
What really triggered their investigation was when they found some pawned material from the first victim at a pawn shop and found fingerprints that they traced back to several aliases Aileen Wuornos used over the years.
When a police sketch of their suspect was released on November the 29th, they immediately received a number of calls identifying Wuornos and Tyria Moore. 3 days later, Tyria left Wuornos and headed back to her home state of Ohio. Wuornos spent the next month drifting from motel to motel, bar to bar, her life unraveling around her. The Last Resort is appropriately named. It's the last bar you'll find as you head out of Port Orange and over Rose Bay. But on the night of January the 9th, 1991, it proved to be literally the final resting place for a free Aileen Wuornos. She was arrested the next day.
So this is it, Bobby, the Last Resort bar. It's really hugely famous amongst the biker community. And Aileen and Tyra spent plenty of time here, sitting, drinking, playing pool in the bar. But once Tyra had left Aileen, she still used to come back here. But she was down in her luck, she didn't have any money, so they took her in here. And she actually spent the last night before she was arrested sleeping somewhere in the back there. So it's a pretty big deal for them in terms of the journey that we're on. There's also been quite a lot of paranormal activity here, and they certainly blame it on Aileen.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be quite interesting when we get in there.
I mean, it certainly looks like a place where if we're going to hear from her, this would probably be it, I should
Let's
think.
hope so.
Yeah.
The bar was owned then and now by a man called Big Al.
Can you tell us about the first time that you met Aileen?
There's nothing spectacular. She was just a customer in here and really didn't say much to her. Well, Ty'd sit on a pool table and Aileen would buy the beers and give us a Ty, and Aileen would take and play the jukebox and stuff like that. Nothing out of the ordinary.
You heard a lot of stories of everybody stopping by the bar and talking about how they knew her or how they had a brush.
Oh yeah, a lot of people.
With her.
What people understand is they think all her victims they took out of the bar here. This was where she hung out. Nobody knew she was a prostitute. She never approached nobody as being a prostitute. Nobody asked her, what are you doing here and where do you make your living, Nobody asked her, there's no reason to ask her.
So on the day that she was arrested here at the bar, what was her demeanor like? Did you have any idea that she was in trouble?
No, she was fine. She came in that morning after we opened up. She had a beer. We were shooting pool. These couple guys came in, they parked a truck out in front. It was like a construction truck, undercover. And they had listening devices, and they were listening to what was going on inside the bar. So they came in and they started talking with her, buying her a couple of beers and stuff like that. And as soon as they walked out the door is when they nabbed her. The next day, the Miami newspaper called me up, and they were the ones that told me that she was a suspected serial killer.
So do you think that Aileen still visits this place?
Oh, yeah, she's still here. Yeah. She'd let you know, too.
In what ways?
Turns off TVs, knocks over bar stools, closes doors.
What makes you think that's her?
She was executed like at 9:47 in the morning. 10:15 that morning, around 10:15. All the knives and everything that was on the shelf over there just came flying off the shelf. Just let her know that I'm back. Well, she said she'd be back anyway.
Our journey to contact the spirit of cold-blooded serial killer Aileen Wuornos had reached its ultimate destination, the last resort in Daytona, the bar where she was finally arrested. Over the final few months of her freedom, the last resort became a sanctuary for Wuornos. As the rest of her life fell rapidly apart, the bar was the one place where Aileen felt safe. Since her death by lethal injection for the murder of 7 men, many have experienced Wuornos' presence.
We could be sitting and talking, everything's fine, and the TVs will go off. No other power will go off, but the TVs will turn off. There were a bunch of people sitting around, and there was a knife display, and the knives literally fell off the wall and kind of shot towards the barmaid that was there at the time, and everybody was freaked out, and most people just wanted to leave because it was just too strange.
The legend of Wuornos is omnipresent at the last resort. Would a seance around the pool table in her beloved bar enable us to have our definitive conversation with the woman they call the Damsel of Death?
So, Bobby, I've organised a seance for us both to be part of this evening.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a fair chance that we might get Aileen coming through later?
She's been here all day, ever since we came in this morning. There's not going to be a problem talking to her tonight and having a conversation.
For the seance, I'd enlisted the help of a local paranormal group run by psychic George Lopez.
It's perfect time frame for us to capture something. I don't see why we can't get a response back from her.
Al Bulling, the owner of the last resort and friend of Eileen's, had also agreed to participate.
We're here this evening trying to contact the spirit of Aileen Wuornos. If you are here in the last resort bar, Aileen, can you please give us some sign of your presence?
She was known as Lee here. Maybe that'll help.
Lee, you know, Al's here also wants to know that you're here. Lee, can you lean against the pool table or move anything to let us know you're here? You said something?
Yeah. She was standing over there now. She just moved over here and I just had to look to see if that's where the jukebox was.
If that was you, can you do that again?
Is that a fan in the jukebox? Do you hear that?
Yeah, there's no fans in the jukebox. That's all digital.
She's laughing. She thinks this is great.
Well, if you remember her last words, I'll be back and she's going to be famous.
But the reason you're famous is because you became a murderer. You murdered several men. This is why you were eventually executed. I mean, you were executed October 9th, 2002 because you murdered men.
She's shouting.
It just seems like you're a coward, and you did it because you were scared then and you're scared now.
She's walking. She's pacing right in back of you.
You get touched in the legs.
She just left over here instead of standing over there now.
Something touching my forehead right now.
She's in back of you.
My whole body's got chills right now.
Is that the door moving?
That door just moved on its own too.
It could just be the breeze from
Because I'm hearing
outside, but-
footsteps now. You just heard that too.
There's that.
That's that noise again that we heard the first time.
You don't know that sound?
Huh?
You don't recognize that sound?
Never heard it.
I don't know. I thought I saw something back there over Al's shoulder. Do you have any regrets for the murders?
Not a f***ing one.
Do you have a message?
I don't have a f***ing message.
Sounds like it.
But I told these mother that I'd be back.
That's just the way she talks.
Aileen, do you think you would have kept on killing had things not come to an end here the way that they did?
I didn't want to. I was trying to stop.
Killing them for what? What would she have kept killing for?
Money to get where we needed to go.
You seem like a smart woman. You could have had a different path in life.
I didn't choose this path chose me. I had no choice.
But you did have a choice.
She
You
just
had a
called
choice. You put
Okay.
bullets in people's backs.
She just called you a bitch.
I'm in good company then.
She said f***ing amen.
Want us to leave you alone now?
She doesn't care to do what you want to do.
Yes, her. She got all the time in the world, right?
That's right. You hear that?
The door just went, and then were there footsteps over in the
I
direction
just heard
of you
something
two?
over there.
Whatever or whoever had been with us in the room, it seemed they had now left the bar.
St. Michael, protect us all. Allow us to leave here freely without the burden of the souls left here following us. May those souls find their peace and their happiness.
Had we antagonized the spirit of Aileen Wuornos? Had she been talking through Bobby? Disturbingly, those at the table truly believed that they'd experienced contact with the killer known as Monster. At that moment, I was unsure how I felt.
I think she was there in the room with us, and there was maybe not any physical evidence, things moving, etc. But the atmosphere in there was very charged indeed.
As the sun rose on a sleepy Florida morning, I knew we had reached the end of our journey and our search for the spirit of Aileen Wuornos. From the start, it had felt like a very personal investigation, and although we had had some paranormal activity,
Did you hear that? Like a door shutting?
I couldn't say we had a definite conversation with this particular serial killer.
Did you tell those motherfuckers so I'm going to kill you?
She said that she would be back. Who's to say that she's not a woman of her word?